as of right now, even though there's been a large volume of stupidity that happened in the government that is trying to regulate, and they're clearly being written up by people who don't understand this technology, open source AI is going to win and innovation will win, and that will be good for abundance creation overall.
Universities, professors were the authorities on knowledge. Specialists and various were the authorities on knowledge. Since the internet came in, they've been being bypassed, but artificial intelligence was like the kill shot. Who needs them anymore? Who needs them?
AI can be your mentor, you can be the apprentice, but just imagine, and that's something that can be done right now by learning how to think and speak this new language, and create six-figure opportunities as entrepreneurs. And I believe the greatest mechanism, the international language of peace, is entrepreneurship.
Hi, everybody. It's Dan Sullivan here, and I'm here with Mike Koenigs, and this is Capability Amplifier. And we feel so amplified in our capability that we're going to make some predictions we're right in the first week of January, so we're making predictions about the whole year of 2024. Okay, and we know we'll be held accountable for everything we say today, but on the other hand, if things turn out the way we say they are, you're going to be so busy with other stuff that you won't even remember what we said.
Well, so here's what we're going to be doing. Dan and I are going to make a prediction for this coming year. And I think the best predictions are the ones that not only come true, but stay true for the long haul, or are the beginning of a significant trend. And they offer opportunity. Not just financial opportunity, but growth opportunity, mindset opportunity, a shift in consciousness opportunity. And the other thing that I told Dan when we got started is anything is fair game here. So I'll give you, if it's okay, I'll give you my first prediction, which is already in motion, but it's super important because this past year has been all about AI. And what we saw is the fastest growth of any platform in human history. A lot of that was from OpenAI and ChatGPT, and how it affected so many industries so quickly. And for example, it has and is completely revolutionizing the creation of media, our ability to create any kind of content, our ability to learn and store information. But here's the prediction that we're already seeing evidence of, which is what makes an AI work is something called a large language model. That's just basically grabbing a whole bunch of information and storing it. And the EU started some regulatory practices, as did the United States. And most people who I think have wisdom agree that this industry, this business is too early to regulate too soon. And that is a danger to innovation. And the one great thing, and this is really my prediction that's happened, is large language models are effectively open source, meaning there are thousands and thousands of them. Just as Meta started open sourcing their technology, Google started open sourcing their technology, many other companies did as well. And what that means is this thing's impossible to regulate. And those that regulate the most are going to be the most screwed fastest. And for example, China, which has no choice because of the way they operate to regulate their population, they've got social credits, and they are inserting all sorts of tools that are going to prevent their systems from being able to communicate, share information, and share truth effectively. And AI, and this is something you brought up a while ago, Dan, is for the most part, it's an English-driven new language. And I won't necessarily say United States is responsible for all the development, but what's important is because it's English speaking and it's primarily US based, and as of right now, even though there's been a large volume of stupidity that happened in the government that is trying to regulate, and they're clearly being written up by people who don't understand this technology. Open source AI is going to win, and innovation will win, and that will be good for abundance creation overall. And yes, some bad things will happen as a result of this. But overall, I believe that the right kind of people who think the right way are making the most forward momentum fastest. And in the end, we're going to see massive transformations. And we talked about this in our last episode, medicine, in energy, in transportation. Everything you talk about in MELT is going to be amplified and multiplied because of AI. And I, for one, will raise my hand as a delusional, optimistic entrepreneur and say, I'm super excited. I'm more excited about our future now than I ever have been. And I'm looking forward to a more abundant 2024 than 2023 because of it. So that's my number one, is open source is here. It's great. And the less regulation, the better. And I don't think they can regulate this beast. And that's basically what the prediction is.
No, I think all the horses left the barn a long time ago on this one. But the whole thing is new horses are being created on the run, you know. So yeah, I think it's if you go back, my history goes back to just the beginning of my interest in computers, goes back to the introduction of the term microchip in 1973. And I read a whole series of articles, one in particular from the New York Times. And you cut out the article and you read it. It wasn't downloading it. And I remember it fell apart, the article. I had it folded and I opened it and read it. And it said two things: that this is going to be the most remarkable technology ever created, number one. Number two was, it's a technology that will be applied to all existing technologies. And it'll be applied to itself to make even more powerful microchips. And that large bureaucratic organizations are going to have a hard time adjusting to the changes that are being made, and that there's going to be a massive increase in the number of entrepreneurial professions there can be, and the different kinds of entrepreneurial companies. And I would say that prediction in 1973, 50 years later, is absolutely correct. But this is a new jump for microchip-enabled technology.
Yes.
Okay. And I would say that this is a new form of knowledge that can be applied to any existing form of knowledge, and that it's much more democratic than the microchip. And the reason is because a critical mass has been reached where you've got so many people doing it that there's no way of even measuring how many people are doing it and what they're doing with it and why they're doing it with. And so I think we're into Evan Ryan, who's a free zone member, along with the two of us.
Yep.
Calls it exponential tinkering.
I like that.
That's a great name. And I was going back to the automobile industry, and the automobile industry actually, we think of Henry Ford, and we think of GM 19 teens and 1920s, but actually the automobile industry actually began in the 1880s with the invention of the diesel engine in Germany, and by 1910 there were about 3,000 or 4,000 automobile companies in the United States. I had three in my hometown of Norwalk, Ohio, and they made basically one car a day. And a lot of them were carriage makers. They were horse and buggy carriage makers who just switched over and put a they put a engine on basically a horse and buggy engine, and everything like it. And actually, in my hometown, there was a carriage maker whose last name was Fisher, and he had 7 sons, and all 7 sons left my hometown and moved to Detroit and became Fisher Body, who made all the carriages for General Motors. I think they still do. I think Fisher Body is still Fisher Body. So the automobile industry was really very, very entrepreneurial. It was very, very diversified for the longest period of time, 30 or 40 years. Actually, in 1910, 40% of all the automobiles in the United States were electric.
I remember that. Yeah. And,
but gasoline just proved to be much more easily available, and,
mobile gas stations,
gas stations, and
power to weight, the battery tech, all that. Yeah, that was.
You could use it for, electricity was getting started at the same time.
Yeah,
and I agree with you completely on this point that it's way too early to even say what this industry even looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, my feeling is one of my predictions. Is
this your first prediction? Are you going to move to your first prediction?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What do you got?
I think the resignation this week of the president of Harvard is just the beginning of a massive earthquake that's going to go through higher education, where for 40 years now they've been teaching people stuff that has really no marketplace value.
Yes.
And I don't think it's so much about, I think that the controversy, a lot of it was about, anti-Semitism, which I think broke open. It was like an earthquake that went through the country.
Yeah.
Things got really clarified since October 7th.
Yes.
And you find out where people were standing on a whole lot of issues. And it came out with, I have a sleep doctor who's just up the road from you. Well, him, Michael Bruce. Michael. And
did I thought I introduced you to, or did I not? I can't remember.
No, he was introduced to me by one of my medical
Okay.
people.
Yeah, I've known him for 15 years. He was a client for 15 years too. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I said, Michael, this being a member of the chosen people really has some downsides to it. And anyway, but the sudden surge of anti-Semitism, which the major universities, notably Harvard and MIT and Penn, didn't handle well because they were put on the spot in front of Congress. And I don't know who their PR firm was, but they were very, very badly,
We'll put it in the Bud Light category.
And I would like to say, I would add Bud Light, that the whole woke culture, which has dominated social media, it's dominated the headlines. I think it's officially over. Okay. And
yes,
now
it was a grift. I mean, at the end of the day, a grift. It was a mechanism for those who don't know how to create real value to make something up and be able to cancel someone for not agreeing with them and going along with their grift.
Yeah.
In a massive way of stealing resources and money and creating walls of bureaucracy to protect themselves while creating no real value.
Yeah.
And, you've always got to say, if you smell politics and bureaucracy piling up a bunch of bricks around something that is effectively
worthless,
a form of fascism, you've got to raise your hand and go, who's stealing here? So that at the end of the day, that's my summary of it. And I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. So my feeling is that we've seen the end of the growth rate of the higher education. And I think it has a lot to do that this funny business in the universities and college is actually a reaction of fear that they're being bypassed by sources of knowledge that no longer need them. In other words,
Yeah.
when I was growing up, universities were the authorities on knowledge. Universities, professors were the authorities on knowledge. Specialists and various were the authorities on knowledge. And my sense is, since the internet came in, they've been being bypassed. But artificial intelligence was like the kill shot, and who needs them anymore? Who needs them? And what I will tell you this is that 60%, just about 60% of undergraduates in the United States now are women. In the graduate schools, it's even higher than 60%. It could be as high as 75%. And they were saying, what's happening to all the men? They're not getting college education. I says, the men are at home looking at their screens and coming up with, and so my sense is that the big surge towards higher education is officially over.
Yeah.
If your kid does a 10-week welding course, he'll be making $60,000 at the end of the first year. He'll be making $250,000 in 5 years, and he'll never make less. He'll never make less, and there will always be a need for him. And my sense is that, and this prediction I'm making right here is that has political overtones because higher education is essentially on one side of the political spectrum. And my sense is that this is coming to an end right now. Okay. But that'll set up a second prediction.
Good. Well, I have one. So I'm so glad you set this up because I'll give you mine, which is the disruption of linear education and the movement towards nonlinear education. And what I mean by that is AI enhanced mentor apprenticeship model, which creates instant value. So I'll give you a couple examples. And this is a couple of stack technologies, but I'll give you the 3 stacks. One of them is right now just using current AI tools. And that would be, I can use ChatGPT. I can learn just enough in real time to do something and create value. And it could be writing marketing copy. In the case of my son, Zach, he assisted me in writing a book, and then he started a business doing audiobooks with the help of AI. And he had his first $10,000 month as a 21-year-old. Okay. So, and like, I didn't give this to him. I demonstrated and helped him, but I did not do it for him. And I found that I've been able to mentor 20-some-year-olds. And I'm actually committed, starting in the 4th quarter of this year, to doing training for young people outside of traditional educations, because I, like you, feel, yes, you could go and learn blue-collar skills, but you can also learn white-collar skills that are value multipliers, where you can go into a business and assist a business growth without having to necessarily understand and know, but being an interface to this new technology. And when I talk about the apprenticeship mentor model, that means the AI can be your mentor, you can be the apprentice, but just imagine, and that's something that can be done right now by learning how to think and speak this new language, and create 6-figure opportunities as entrepreneurs. And I believe the greatest mechanism, the international language of peace, is entrepreneurship. It's something anyone in any country can speak without having a government, a bureaucracy, or a religion, or a politician involved, other than the theft of your value creation in the form of overtaxation. But that's another story for another time. So the stack to this, though, is soon with augmented reality glasses, let's say you learn some skills, and look, welding and doing certain kinds of physical tasks, you got to spend some time in the field with a real human mentor apprentice, and not cut off your hand or do something stupid that involves, killing someone or yourself. But being able to have real-time repair manuals. So I see like repairing cars, for example, with augmented glasses, where this thing knows what you're looking at. Google demonstrated some technology, it's called Gemini, that recognizes objects in real time and says, right now you're looking at a squiggle that's turning into a duck, or laying in front of you are 10 parts, and here's how you can assemble them and put them together, where you're, it's basically saying, now grab the thing on, nope, that one, now put it in this hole, and now twist it and turn it, etc. The level of an increase in smart productivity. Now, I do think that robotics are going to augment a lot of work. I mean, Elon's effectively saying there will be like 10 billion robots on the planet. So in other words, more robots than humans soon. And at first I thought that's absurd, till I realized the financial model for that. I'm going off on a little tangent here, but I promise I'll bring it all back around, is imagine if you could lease a robot for less than a human and do the things that are super annoying that no human really wants to do anyway, like picking vegetables and stuff like that. Maybe a lot of people do. I'm not crapping on that business, but let's just say I'm right for a moment. But the whole point is, and then focus on augmented capabilities that are more suited for a creative human who can iterate to more innovation. I mean, that's really, I see a massive proliferation of increased innovation, which again kind of couples back to my first prediction, but the stack here is disrupting an absolute crap educational system that was politicized and wokeified, that we as parents and have lost control over, and now being able to make it better and more augmented, but not dependent upon what I consider corrupt, ineffective systems, and also unions that create no value. I mean, if you talk to any teachers, the unions screw them in general, and they're it worships status quo or less than that.
Well,
so
again, they're on one side of the political spectrum. So
yes, I am. Yeah. That or they.
No.
The
examples you're giving are and my sense and my other prediction goes along with it. I think that there's going to be a fundamental seismic shift in the makeup of American government starting. It's already starting, but I think it started in the 90s with with Newt Gingrich, when they took back the Congress. And I think it's the end of the Cold War period. Part of it, there's a big picture here that the U.S. created this amazing global economy, and basically American taxpayers paid for it. And American workers really paid for it because their jobs went overseas to support this. And that made total sense for the first 35 years because it was to keep the Soviet Union. They didn't want to have American soldiers fighting against the Russians in Europe. Basically that's it. And the U.S. has reached the point now where they just don't want to see bodies coming back in coffins at all. There's just a distaste for that.
Yeah.
So my sense is that there's going to be a massive political shift. And, I've been following this. And first of all, the shift has been taking place. Trump's win in 2016 was part of the shift. And what it is, it's now a worker class political establishment. And you're seeing that.
Yes, it's a proletariat movement, just like that really was. That was the vote of the proletariat saying, I'm not heard. You're right.
But the black voters are shifting. The Latino voters are shifting. Young people are shifting, and after October 7th, you're going to see a large portion of the Jewish population shifting away from the Democrats, who is really the party of the wealthy. They're the party of the billionaires. They've become. And this goes on in the States about every, 60 to 70 years. And the New Deal in the this would be 80 years ago, the shift to the Democratic Party as a result of the Great Depression and a lot of other things. There's never one issue that determines a massive political change. But we've watched 40 years of higher education, especially elite colleges and elite universities, who aren't producing leaders. They're not producing leaders. They're producing investment bankers. They're producing wealthy lawyers. They're producing wealthy media people. They're producing, but they're not producing anyone who can actually lead the country. And I think that there's an accumulation now, a unity of all people who used to be on opposite sides of the political spectrum, Democrat and Republican, who are now coalescing. The names will stay the same. People say, well, there's going to be a third party. And I said, you ought to read the part of the Constitution that says how the Electoral College works. And I said, like Robert Kennedy was that genius, and were you there? You were there. Were you there for the?
No, I was there at the dinner. Yeah, it was fantastic. It was like he was such a fascinating historian. And I think that's his greatest gift.
And I think he's historical. He's historic. Yeah. He's the last vapor in the Kennedy tank, the gas tank. And I found him a very forthright person. I found him a very, and he talks about his own issues and what it's like to have a famous father and a famous uncle be assassinated. And I still think he feels that the truth about those two assassinations has been covered up. And I think that that's the real bone that he has to pick, is that it's been covered up. And, that's his thing. That's his thing. He talked about his addictions, and he talked about everything else. But my sense is that he would have been the perfect political candidate, presidential candidate for America that no longer exists. And my sense is that he can. I think in the November election, because he is running, he's an independent, so he will be on the ballot. And my sense is that he could take 5 to 7% of the popular vote. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know I was talking to a client who said, he could really go places. I said, you have to understand how the Electoral College works. He could get 30% of the popular vote and not take one electoral vote. Ross Perot in 1992 elections, he took 26% of the vote. He didn't get one electoral vote, but he gave the election to one of the candidates. He gave election to one of the parties,
which could definitely happen here for sure.
Yeah. And I don't think, but my sense is that it's much bigger than just the shifting kind of election from one party to the other. I think this is a massive change. And I think, I don't like using the word proletariat because it's a communist word, but it's a working class. It's a working class.
Okay.
Because two-thirds of the voters don't have college degrees. It's I think 37% of Americans have college degrees, and these are people who don't have college degrees, but they actually know how to do things. They, people with graduate degrees from university know how to change the world, but they don't know how to change a tire.
Yeah. There was a fantastic South Park episode that came out.
Oh, I love South Park these days.
Oh my God. Did you see the one about basically how the handymen became the new class of billionaires, and all the white collar workers ended up working out and trying to trade accounting at Home Depot so someone would come fix their stove. It was freaking genius. And
South Park really has a finger on the pulse. And some issues. But so my sense is that this is going to be a massive change. and the people who most speak for the working class are going to be elected in November. Okay.
I think there is fascinating momentum, and I cannot wait. This is sort of like, I'm not a guy who watches sports, but I'm following this sports game because it's one of the greatest shifts in psychology that's been bound to happen for a long time. So
yeah, and it's a function of 40 years of technological change and communications change and everything. But my sense is that all the people who are out of touch, they're like the royalty before the French Revolution. They're like the people around the Tsar before the Russian Revolution. And this is a seismic shift. I mean, this is an earthquake. This is an earthquake, and my sense it'll continue. I mean, each election after this election, it'll continue. And I think that the president of the United States now was elected because he really represents the thinking capabilities of his party.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And I have, as usual, I had to take a note for myself. I have another prediction that stacks nicely on top of this one.
Okay, this is your number 3.
I think so. Did we do 2 already?
Yeah, I've done 2.
Okay, good.
I did higher education and political earthquake.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you did earthquake. Okay, good. So I'm going to stack the political earthquake and raise you the new world of real time. So here's the political one. Imagine an election when the 2 debaters or a panel of debaters are all fact-checked in real time with historical data on a real-time liometer. So you cannot BS any longer. And you can't just reframe political garbage, all right? Which is why there have been some who've said this is and will be the last human election because AI can augment, we'll call it historical facts and truth, or even weigh what would be considered the most truthy of data. So that's not my prediction. I just think that is a byproduct of what's happening. So I believe we are entering the world of true real-time, integrated, multilingual everything. And how's that going to affect us? So I'm going to give you an example of something my teams have been building. So I've shifted our energy now, and I've actually brought on a development group doing AI stuff. And we're building a platform right now for one of our clients that trains and teaches and certifies people.
You're talking about humans, right?
Yeah. So the AI component, basically,
smart humans. I still have there's a big future for smart humans.
I'm with you. I believe in a better, more abundant, exponential future for humans. I'm still, like I say, a delusional optimist.
Some humans.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There is going to be some prehistoric times coming up here, or rapid, devolution. Devo is coming back. But I have a couple real-time examples. So, when I use the other one about the shift in education to the disruptive nonlinear, that also means multilingual. So as an example, one of our clients, we're loading up all their knowledge, all their wisdom. So now you can have this real-time chatbot that talks to you and teaches you with multiple channels simultaneously in multiple languages. So the first release is, English and Spanish and French. And the tech is about this far away, like months away from being able to produce real-time made for you video in whatever language you speak, giving you just what you need and what you looked for. Again, no more linearity. But what that also means is, in the case of, let's say, real-time fact-checking politics, that is just in time, made for you, contextually relevant and aware information. Get more clients, grow your business with better marketing and messaging, make more money and get a better life with more freedom of time, money, relationship, and impact. Learn more about our 3-day one-on-one done with you reinvention workshop. Visit connecttomike.com to book a conversation with me right now. All right, back to the episode. One other tool we built, which I can't wait to give to you, is this thing that it's an AI marketing bot. And basically, here's how it works, Dan, is you go up, and I'll put a link inside our show notes, but you talk to a bot and it says, hey, what's your name? What's your contact information? And it effectively asks you the equivalent of DOS. And it says, what's the, if we were meeting a year from today, it's effectively asking the Dan Sullivan question, what needs to happen? And then
DOS issues.
The DOS, right? What's preventing you? What opportunities do you want to take advantage of? And ultimately it asks you, what I always say is, if you could spend 99% of your time doing what you or your organization is best at, what would it be if everything else were taken away? And then what this does is it produces a customized report for you. It creates an audio report, a video. In this case, it'd be, imagine virtual Dan talking to you, contextually relevant. It looks you up. And first, it also make sure that you are a qualified lead. And so it's doing client or data enrichment. And then it looks you up on LinkedIn for your history to learn more about you. So it talks about your current world and your future world. And then it builds a custom report that it also emails to you. Soon it will WhatsApp you. The reason why WhatsApp is important is because text marketing and email marketing don't have 100% deliverability, but right now WhatsApp does, and it's international. So I can send you an audio, a video, and a PDF. Mm-hmm. And the point is, imagine being able to deliver 10x is better than 2x, or any of your books made for a person in near real time. So contextually relevant, just in time, message appropriate for the person in any language. And, now you don't have to go through the complexity of making your offer relevant to someone or your education relevant, because it is. And I think, just imagine what the real-time multiplier world is going to look like when it's just in time, just for you. And accurate.
Yeah. But let me ask you a question about that.
Sure.
Because I read article, very interesting. I'll dig it up and I'll have it available for a future podcast. And they're finding that the human brain is unlike any other animal brain in the world. And that almost all animal brains have a one channel. They have a one channel. They take in information and they send it through one channel.
Yep.
But every human being has multiple channels in their brain that it varies where the information, it goes through this channel, goes through this channel, goes through this channel. And a lot of it has to do with stimulation. Okay. And they said that already in when the baby is a fetus, the brain is developing differently, because twins, for example, will develop different brains. Okay, I mean, genetically they're identical. Twins are clones. They're exactly the same, but the way their brains develop starts differentiating right from the beginning. Okay, and my sense is the complexity of this is way beyond being analyzed, the complexity of each individual. And I think that's why our concept of unique ability works so well, because we're recognizing the basic fact that every human being creates meaning. I don't say they process information differently, because I don't think we're information processors. I think we're meaning makers.
I agree completely. You're right.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing: the inequality between meaning makers and human beings is vastly different.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're one of my inputs. Okay. So between podcasts with you, I don't have to take any interest in where AI is going because I know you're doing it. So what I've done is I've said, I don't even have to develop this pathway in my brain. I just have to spend a couple hours with Mike every couple weeks to do it because I get it. Okay. Well, I'm just one example of 8 billion human beings. I'm just one example. And I have particular interests and I'm developing particular things. But the other thing is, I have an aspiration to understand things that other people are experts at, but I don't want to know what they know. I just want them to tell me why it would be useful for me.
That
Yeah,
so I want to plus that a little bit. Yeah.
I'm just putting this up.
Yeah.
And my sense, no matter how good AI is, it doesn't actually know what's going on in your brain.
You're right.
It doesn't know how you programmed your brain.
I mean, there's a yes
And a but.
here's my I'm gonna end it because this is really interesting. I've used it when I do a little stage presentation. So this is not about information processing, but it's getting close, which is recently they've connected fMRI machines to humans. And in this particular case, a person looks at a picture of a giraffe or a real giraffe, and then this device reads it, and then using a version of GPT, it analyzes that and it looks at the data stored in the brain and makes a picture of a giraffe. Because objects, which is how the brain, just like AIs, this is what's weird is the large language model is storing data in a very human-like way, and what they've learned is an image of a dog detected with an MRI looks the same in Japanese, English, and Spanish. They're objects. It's stored that way. Just like I would say fractals in the universe, and there's to talk about what a holographic universe is. It's ultimately it's signals, it's data. And so I agree with you that the difference between meaning and the difference between processing data is that of interpretation and storytelling and the ability, in a way, what you're dependent upon with me and I am on you is your interpretation and giving something meaning that is a combination of emotion. It's like concentrated, it's like we get together because we learn so much more through a dialogue and a conversation, not through I'm showing you a picture of my doggy picture and you're showing me a picture of your doggy picture. It's contextually relevant. Mm-hmm. And so I've thought about this a lot, but I haven't arrived at some gigantic conclusion other than like when Steve Jobs announced the iPhone in 2007 and says it's an it's an iPod, it's an internet communications device and a phone, and everyone thought it was three things. And he says, no, do you get it? Do you get it? And suddenly the world changed.
Yeah.
And the App Store was born not that much later. And I think what we're seeing right now is our interpretation of the universe is shifting as these new technology stacks are coming alive and we're applying these. And
well, when you say our, again, it's individual human beings' interpretation is is changing. I don't know. My sense, I remember when I went to the very first meeting of that, what became Abundance 360.
Mm-hmm.
It was in Silicon Valley on Moffett Field at the Singularity headquarters. And Ray Kurzweil was talking, and he said, within, a foreseeable future, the computing power of computers is going to exceed human intelligence. And so I went up to him at the break and I said, "Are you talking about consciousness?" Okay. And he said, "Nobody knows what consciousness is." Well, I said, "I think it's got something to do with human intelligence, actually." And one thing I followed, Mike, since there's been an internet, is breakthroughs in understanding consciousness. And you know how much progress there's been in the last 30 years?
Yeah. Yeah, we just don't know.
We have no conscience. So if you don't even know what it is, and I think it's a fundamental part of human intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think it's a function of calculation. I think it's something else is going on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think humans are computers. I don't think the human brain is a computing brain.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a connecting brain. It just connects.
Yes.
It just randomly connects all sorts of things and then puts a couple of things together. And Steve Jobs himself kind of. I'm starting my next book next week. So I just wrapped this one up, and we're starting really, really early, and it's called "Everything is Created Backwards."
Mm. Mm.
So I'll use you as an example.
Mm-hmm.
You're able to do with artificial intelligence today as a result of what Mike Koenigs has been up to for the last 30 years in technology and networks and marketing, and you're putting them all together in a really unique way. You're putting them really together. And I know that my brain doesn't operate in your direction. I'm kind of interested in a whole bunch of other things, and you find my things interesting, and I find your things interesting. So, we were able to connect, and you say, "Oh, I'm not going to think about that. I'm going to just ask Dan what he thinks about that."
Yeah.
And like I'm passionate about politics. I'm
Yeah.
passionate, and that to get the latest update on what Dan thinks is useful. And so my sense is that it's still human and human coming together, and you're using all sorts of tools. And our team, all of our team is using AI in some way. They're using tools and everything like that. And I can tell we had a team meeting on Wednesday, and I could tell how optimistic our team is. And but they're just doing things that save them time, save them effort, and they're really interested in this stuff. And I said, all we have to do is up our overall productivity about 10% per year, company wide, and it compounds. It compounds.
Right.
So my sense is that it's not predictable where any of this stuff is going. And you and I are more up to date with a lot of breakthrough stuff than most people. But what if people have no ambition? So, what if they have no aspirations? Okay. I don't think a huge amount of new data is going to make any difference to their ambition or their aspirations. I think I think that's a consciousness realm. Oh, so I want to give you a statistic.
Yeah.
And this will be a third one for me. Okay. And my third one, so you had 3 and I have 3. And that is John Bowen and I have a free zone collaboration. And John bought a survey company, and we sent out, they designed the survey, and then they asked us if we were to have strategic coach clients respond to the survey, what other questions should we be asking them? And I gave them a whole list of other questions like, what are you doing with your free time? How much free time do you, coach stuff, so I gave them an agenda. And they had, they couldn't include all my questions because there's only so much you can put in a survey. But the survey came back, and I'll just give you one category that came back. What is your life expectations? Lifetime expectations. It was a question. And they had 4 categories. They had current strategic coach clients, and they had people who have been in the program but are not in the program now. And we had 800 responded to the survey.
Wow.
And then he had his base and he had 1,200. Okay. And he had two kinds. He had a panel, a specially chosen panel of about 100 people. And then he had about 1,100 people who were general public. So they asked by lifetime expectation 60 to 70, 70 to 80, 80 to 90, 90 to 100, 100.
I took the survey. So yeah.
100, 110, and 110 and beyond. So his panel, 5% of them expected to live more than 110 years. His general public, the general body was 1% expected to live beyond 110. With strategic coach, 34% expected to live beyond 110. And of the out clients, 22% of them expected to live about 110. And I said, they've never seen such a strange disparity of people who live to be, what their lifetime is. And I said, well, it's the first question of the program. When anybody starts the program, the first question they get is, at what age are you going to die?
Yeah, it just goes to show what great framing, great storytelling, great mindset does in creating a common conversation, right?
Yeah.
With an outcome that can actually be affected with resources, tools, that is the currency.
Well, my feeling is the interest in all the medical stuff we've been talking about, is disproportionately on the side. The interest is people who not only expect to live a long time, but have aspirations for living a longer, more productive, more creative life. And so my sense is that's just a survey, and that's just a survey question. Okay, so that's just one. The other thing is coach clients have work far fewer hours and have higher revenues and higher wealth. They have higher wealth. And the other thing is that for the most part, they're not multi-generational entrepreneurs. The vast majority of them are founders. Okay?
Yes, for sure.
And ours, compared to the general population, are second generation, third generation. We have some, but not many. Okay. And if there's going to be multi-generation, it's going to be the children of our entrepreneurs who are maybe having children in their own company. So this is my third one, is that the greatest inequality in human population, and I'll talk about the United States mainly here, and what I would call the rich tech countries. The United States is a rich tech country. Canada is a rich tech country. And then you have UK, you have Australia, you have New Zealand, you have Scandinavian countries. And that people who are immersed in technology and have been their whole life just easily deal with technological concepts. They deal with new technological breakthroughs, and they're as interested in technology as what's the weather going to be tomorrow, and everything like that. So we've lived our whole lives, you more than I, in totally a technological water. We're the fish that swim in the technological water. And I'll bring up a topic, and it was Gordon Moore, who is credited with Moore's Law. And near the end of his life, he was interviewed, and he said, "This is a real law, isn't it?" Or somebody said, "Well, you've created Moore's Law, and that's really the law that determines technological development." And he says, "Well, it's not really a law." He said, "It's not a law." He says, "I only had 3 data points when he said, I didn't make a prediction. I just made an observation." And I asked a question. I said, 3 data points. So the first data point to the second data point, the number, the power of computerization increased by twice. Okay, and the cost of the computerization went in half. So it's like a 4 times return. And he said, and I didn't think anything of it, but when I had a third data point, and they were about 2 years apart, and he came out with this in 1965, very famous article. And he said, I just wonder if this continues. He didn't make a prediction. He just said, I got 2 data points. I just wonder if this continues. And the article didn't go anywhere really for about 5 years. And then all of a sudden it took off and they started calling it Moore's Law. Moore's Law every 2 years, 18 months, whatever it is. The microchip, the amount of computing that we can put in will double and the costs. And everybody said, well, this is the future. And he says, it's not about technology, it's about aspiration. He said, what the thing called Moore's Law did, it funneled and channeled and focused everybody's aspiration. And then it gave them a means for measuring their progress towards their aspiration. And so my sense is humans are strictly aspirational creatures. We're totally aspirational creatures, and each of our individual brains creates totally different aspirations. And I think it's not analyzable.
I got to meditate on that one because I'm going a million different directions. But my overall sense is, first of all, this is all comes back to crafting and creating an inspirational movement story.
Yeah.
Right. And what I was experiencing as you were telling that story is, what is the next inspirational story that has not yet been told that will completely shift our consciousness, our awareness, or our aspirations or inspirations or our motivations, right? That is and could be one of the greatest opportunities of our lifetimes. And it's like, what does that movie look like? What does that story look like? And I love the way I feel when I think about it. So I will say my reaction is I love the way I feel when I experience what you're talking about. And I've never thought about it through this frame before. So
no, I'm just going back to Gordon Moore, who's certainly one of the pioneers. I mean, before Steve Jobs, before, this is when he was at Fairchild Semiconductor, he was, and he, Robert Noyce and, a whole bunch of people put together the makings, in Orange Grove country in San Francisco, California. But his whole point was it's just a way of thinking. He says the doubling every 2 years, he said, and then people say, well, good, we have a yardstick and we have something to shoot for. And, and then the stock market got involved, and everything. But my sense is, we had a very early podcast, one of our very early podcasts, where I said that the big reason why Christianity changed the world, because it gave people 2 lifetimes. Okay. Yeah. And it allowed them to make sense of the inequality of their present lifetime, because there was going to be a payback lifetime in the future.
Yeah.
when
bonus life.
When the emperor was taking my bags to the room, even if he was in the same hotel, and my sense is that every once in a while there's an idea which catalyzes a lot of other thoughts. And I think that Moore's Law was a very catalyzing thought. Okay. And it's not that the average person even knows what Moore's Law is, and the people who talk about Moore's Law don't even know what it is, but it's a way of talking about a sudden shift in what people could aspire to. Okay. And your story about your son, who's making 10,000 a month, doing audiobooks, telling that story gives inspiration. And Jeff Madoff and I had a great podcast on where we talked about the similarity between Trump and Taylor Swift. And I was in Argentina when Taylor Swift was staying at the same hotel. and the Swifties were outside the hotel, and the hotel had barricades up, so the Swifties, the Swifties couldn't come in. They couldn't come in the lobby. They couldn't interfere with guests, and people were good about it. I mean, there was no disruptions or anything else. And Babs went over and talked to some of them. They were making their bead bracelets, their Taylor Swift bracelets. And one of them was making 300 because at the concert she was going to all the concerts and she was going to give out 300 bracelets and receive 300 bracelets in return with people's contact information.
Wow.
And I said, Taylor Swift's music is not really my music. I'm a 50s and 60s guy, and I'm more into Roy Orbison and Nat King Cole and a lot of things. But everybody's got their own music, so I was just sitting there and I was watching Babs, and she was talking to the Swifties, who were mainly teenagers, and I was saying, what she's done? She's given them a framework to approach their lives. She's supplied an organizing principle for them, and they feel they're part of something. They're participating in something really big. Okay. And I felt that way about Trump right from the beginning. He's creating a framework where people are feeling that they can, and he even named it. He already had the name for it, the MAGA, and everything like that. And I said, you can't compete with a movement. I mean, if you're approaching politics and they say, well, the polls say this, it's not about the polls. It's basically, what are people saying day to day over the back fence? What are they saying? What are they saying? And my sense is that what artificial intelligence is, just to relate to several of the predictions that you made, my sense is that there are individuals who can kind of represent the combined impact of people's aspirations better than others. And I think that Taylor Swift is a unique individual in that respect. I think she's catalyzed the aspirations of millions and millions and millions of people. But I think she's been at it for her whole life. There was a story about her when she was 11 years old. She went to Nashville and she had her discs, and she went from studio to studio and gave out her discs. Okay. So she's been uniquely on this track for several decades. I mean, she's in her 30s, but she's been on the track maybe when she was 6 years old. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
she started very young. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but she was not predictable. And I don't think Trump was predictable.
Yeah. With regards to that, I think her business did like over $4 billion this last year. Insane volumes of cash, which is only a measuring stick, which I watched her not long ago on Tiny Desk Concert, which NPR produces, I like it because you really get a sense of the personality of the performer. They do a great job because it's a little tiny environment and it's mostly acoustic and there is an audience there. And the way she communicated and treated the people with genuine care and respect.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she's a great listener. And I'm with you. Like, I don't find her particularly interesting other than as a phenom, as a very, very unique byproduct of this era, doing the right thing at the right time for the right people. And when I listen to her, I can't stand listening to her talk because every other word is like. It's that super annoying, ugh.
Valley girl. She's a valley girl.
It's just, my brain breaks. And have an enormous amount of deep respect because she's arguably one of the greatest entrepreneurs of our time, not to mention entertainer entrepreneurs. Who has
I think Trump is too. Trump is approaching politics from an entrepreneurial standpoint. Well, he was an entrepreneur. I mean, he was an entrepreneur before he became president. But he's just treating the White House and being president of the United States as an entrepreneurial
Stage.
activity.
It's a stage. It's a storytelling opportunity. And I
Yeah.
think your distinction of packaging, which is ultimately packaging and positioning and messaging a movement, an aspirational movement. I would just suggest that I'm going to give this some meditative thought because
Yeah.
I believe that this could, in fact, be one of our greatest podcast opportunities of the future, which is how do we combine and package a movement?
Well,
And
well,
yeah,
yeah, and I think it's mysterious, and I think
it
it's
is.
mysterious.
It's just as much
I
a
think
religious
no,
aspiration as anything.
I think it's totally mysterious. It's just that today, with the technology that's available, you can influence billions really, really quickly, and I think that is a totally different thing. And I'll just tell you a story, and it's about one of our clients. It's Stephen Poulter, who's an IVF doctor.
I love him. He's such a great guy. Yeah.
IVF doctor, in vitro fertilization. He helps other men's wives get pregnant. Okay. And he's rated, and this is US government statistics, that in the United States, in every clinic that does IVF implants, you have to register every implant with the US government. And they issue a scorecard every 6 months saying not the individual doctors, but which clinics have the highest success rate. And for the last 10 years, he's been and the US is the only country that does this. So it's, but
I did
is,
not know any of this. This is fascinating.
and he's in the, he's close to 80% on first implant. And this is for 35 to 39 years old. That's what they look at on. The industry average is around 37%. He's at 80%. So anyway, as a result of Free Zone and getting involved with Mark LaChance, who does TikTok, TikTok programs, it shows people how to do TikTok programs. Stephen has really become a star on TikTok. Okay. So we were in New York 3 weeks ago. That was our connecting call. Our connecting flight was from JFK to Buenos Aires. And we had about a 6-hour break. And so they live about a half hour from JFK. So we went into Queens and we had lunch with Stephen and Michelle. And he was telling us that morning that he didn't have time, but he tries to do a TikTok every day. And he did a TikTok. He said it was just off the top. And, he shows the most explicitly sexual films of what happens when a sperm meets an egg, it kind of shows it. And he had this big picture. So he did it. And then he was looking at his phone while we were watching. He says, "Oh my God!" He says, "I just had 25,000 downloads of this in the last 15 minutes." Then we went through it in the hour. He says, since we've been at lunch, I've had 250,000 downloads. So that was 3 weeks ago.
Astonishing.
And this last weekend, he got a report from TikTok that he was now at 930 million downloads for this. And that's other media like Instagram and everybody else picking it up. He was now approaching, and by Monday, I mean, he'll be in 10 times on Monday with you. He may have crossed 1 billion for one TikTok episode.
Unbelievable.
And that tells you the kind of world we're in. But the reason is that he's very authoritative, and he started because somebody sent him some information that was just rubbish about how pregnancy happens and everything else. And he got really irate, and he just went on TikTok. And he says, "Look, people are saying this, and this it just went instant. It just went instant across the universe, the social media universe." And now he's done, I don't know if he's done 1,000, 1,200 TikTok, and he's this raving star in the world.
It's
And
crazy.
because there's just so much non-information, misinformation, just weird sayings, and he just corrects them. He corrects them. So anyway, it's an interesting phenomenon. But if you had not, you've known Stephen for a long time,
Yeah.
and can you imagine Stephen, who's, he's a doctor, he's a scientist, and the word TikTok and the scientist being together, you say,
Yeah.
my brain can't even contain those two thoughts at the same time. But he's got the perfect personality for it. He knows a lot about technology, but he knows how to get across really, really pungent information in a very, very entertaining, very informative, educational kind of way. And there are only 60 seconds, there are 90 seconds, it's really straightforward. And he's got all sorts of great backgrounds with films and everything, and it's the birds and the bees in the 21st century.
Yeah. Well, he's, the unlikely hero. While you were telling that story, I was thinking to myself, I have a great name for a TV show. It's called Let's Knock Up Your Wife. What do you think of that? No, it's, it'd be like, whoa. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's,
But my sense, he
great.
stumbled on this. He
Yeah.
stumbled on this.
It's
But he was
timing is
just,
everything, and the content and the pain is so real. And he is the perfect character for
yeah.
for that platform.
Yes. Yeah, but nobody could have. No marketing guy said what we got to get is a doctor who looks like this and he talks like this, and we're going to create. It didn't work. It happened.
Yeah, he's perfect for it.
It happened spontaneously, And the real reason why he was kind of angry at the misinformation, and it's the guy who got, the guy who created Netflix. He got charged for a late return on his blockchain or his blockbuster, and he was so pissed off that he said, there's got to be another way to do this,
Well, it's like getting pissed off enough to start a movement that became a business, or a business became a movement.
Well, he wasn't intending to create a movement. He just.
Yeah, I think the movement's a byproduct of.
Well, I think the movement is a mysterious miracle and always will be.
I love it. Well, I will say that when we're getting to the end of the episode about predictions, I never expected us to be talking about IVF and TikTok, but and movements the way we did. But I do think that it's a perfect place to put a punctuation here, because the best predictions do become movements. And I think that was our intent getting into this, is how can we make sure that this is real and is valid 10 years from now is when it comes out of our mouths.
Yeah.
How's that?
Well, yeah. I mean, try to predict where any of our podcasts are going to go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the best part of it. They're mysterious. So, well, let's wrap this one up. How do you want to wrap this one up, Dan? Anything you want to add before we put an end on this, and then we do the beginning of the podcast at the end of it, like we always do?
Well, I think the other thing is that we should revisit this a year from today.
Totally, yeah.
We said, and I'm willing to be held accountable for my predictions. And I mean, it's the future is all guesses and bets. So, I don't think that there's any inevitability, but of what I'm talking. But I'm just picking up on, I'm just picking on which way I see the tide going in 3 or 4 areas, and you are too.
Well, that plus it'll be after an election, which will be even more fascinating, because I anticipate we are going to see some crazy unknowns getting pulled out of thin air, which will be exciting as well. So I think just how all this stuff's going to affect media and perception, and who knows what kind of movement might be created between now and then. So
one thing now I will say about the next election, Trump during this entire period when they're going into the primaries just ignores his competitors. And I think when we get to 2 months, they're going to want to have debates on TV. And he said, I don't need any debates. He says, I'm just going to bypass your debates because debates are an old form.
Which is essentially what he did, the way he used the media then and television then and social media.
Then he'll be in all the news because he's avoiding the debates.
Yeah. It's just another.
How dare. He's a dictator. He's like Hitler. He's like Hitler. Yeah. And then
better not say that.
Godwin's law. Do you know Godwin's law?
Yeah. No.
Godwin's law is in a debate, the first person who says the word Nazi or Hitler just lost the debate.
Right. And unfortunately, we'll have to beep that out, or we'll probably get slaughtered by YouTube. But we'll leave it in iTunes. Thank God they don't do any of that. But yes, I'm looking forward to the funnest and most interesting year ever. And it's going to be this year.
Yeah. All right. I have a free zone connector tomorrow, and the new exercise is called Your Best Year Ever 2024. So
awesome. This is very timely, and I'm going to be there. So let's officially wrap this up. So this has been our predictions for 2024. I had a barrel of monkey fun, and I can't wait for the next one. And make sure you share this with other people who might want to know what Dan thinks of the future and what's going to happen next. So let's wrap this one up.
And Mike too.
Woohoo!